Hello, hello. Welcome back to the P2P Soap Box. I'm your host and P2P BFF, Marcie Maxwell, and I am so excited to be back for Season 5. Today, we are diving into something every fundraising leader grapples with. How do you keep your team aligned when you are managing fundraisers with different experience levels, corporate partners with varying expectations, and an internal staff with very diverse skill sets? The answer, according to today's guest, lies in understanding what drives each person and then tailoring your approach accordingly. Today, I'm joined by Javier Sanchez, Executive Director of the Miami Dolphins Cancer Challenge. For those not familiar with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, it was founded in 2010 as the signature initiative of the Miami Dolphins Foundation and has become the largest fundraising event in the NFL. Their mission is to improve people's lives through financial support for innovative cancer research at Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. Since its inception, the DCC has contributed more than $75 million toward life-saving research and care initiatives. But here's what makes Javier's perspective so valuable. With over 20 years of experience spanning mass participation sports, philanthropy, and entertainment, he's mastered the art of identifying different personas within his ecosystem and adapting his leadership style to meet each group's specific needs. From uncovering hidden motivations in fundraisers to coaching staff on deeper participant conversations, Javier shares practical strategies that any mission-driven leader can apply. Whether you're supporting a first-time fundraiser or managing seasoned corporate partners, today's conversation offers actionable insights for building stronger teams that drive real impact. So let's jump right into Season 5 with my conversation with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge's Javier Sanchez. Javier, welcome to the P2P Soap Box. We're so happy to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's jump right in. I know you and I have a little bit of shared background in our fundraising career, but why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your personal and professional journey that led you to your current role at the Dolphins Cancer Challenge?
Awesome. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me and honestly just being able to represent the organization. But also, I want to kick this off by giving a kudos to you and your team for what you do all throughout the year. The messaging, the podcast, the conference, like you guys help us stay motivated, stay connected. And honestly, that has a lot to do with how and why I'm here.
I'll slip you that Starbucks gift card later for that, Javier.
Actually, that comes in handy too. Caffeine is critical to success in our industry. No, honestly, it's about feeling good. And a lot of that involves connecting with people. And that's something that I dedicated my entire life to, really not even realizing it. Your conference had a lot to do with that aha moment for me. My career began with music. I began as a musician, born and raised in South Florida. I went to the University of Miami. But the one thing that I learned throughout that progress and my journey was really just that I was bringing people together. I was helping them connect, and it felt good. It was something that was really important to me as I started to grow and mature. And quickly thereafter, through music, I was invited to support a few friends producing the Miami Marathon and getting involved in endurance sports. It was around that rise in the early 2000s. And all of the world was turning to endurance sports, from marathons to half marathons and triathlons. And this organization leveraged my experience, background in music and said, bring that concept to marathons, bring bands, bring entertainment, DJs. Let's help make running more entertaining. And we rode that wave and that boom. And as you very well know with your background, like there's a huge alignment between people wanting to better themselves and people running for a cause. So that's really where I got hooked in this industry, in this business, of just saying, how can I leverage and empower people to do the best for themselves, the growth of their community, but really do it in this really attractive, natural manner that says, I'm doing something positive. And that's where I think the philanthropic side, the charitable running side, really started to pick up. And next thing you know, I started and got to know some great organizations, everyone from St. Jude Children's Research Hospital to the way that many of the other philanthropic entities worked. And I ended up here with the Miami Dolphins in 2018.
That's awesome. We just missed each other during our time at St. Jude, I think. So Javier, for listeners who are outside of the Miami area, who maybe aren't familiar with the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, can you just give us that quick snapshot of the event and about the mission that you support?
Yeah, it's very special. Honestly, not many pro sports teams have an actual charity affiliated. This is separate from the Miami Dolphins Foundation, separate from the Miami Dolphins organization. We're our own standalone 501c3 called the Dolphins Cancer Challenge. We began back in 2010. Very similar model to the PanMask Challenge, where 100% of every dollar that's raised supports cancer research. And we partner with our local cancer center here, Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center. And I say local really to reference where they are regionally, to know that the Miami Dolphins, a team, is supporting right here. Every dollar raised supports our local center, but they're nationally recognized. So it's a great combination of us aligning with a really powerful entity in the cancer space. And since 2010, we've raised over $91 million this year. We're forecasted to surpass that $100 million mark.
Amazing.
After a really powerful 2025 of $15 million raised.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. I love hearing about, I think sometimes we talk a lot about these large scale national events, but there's so many of these hyper local regional events that are just killing it on such an amazing scale. And so I love hearing about events like yours. So what you described with partner hospitals, with professional athletes, you're working in a really complex event environment. You've got not only your fundraisers, your corporate partners, again, the athletes, your internal team. How do you keep everyone kind of marching in the same direction? Keep everybody aligned with your mission and focus really on what matters most?
That's a big one. And you referenced something, sometimes you got to go back to some core principle messages, some core themes. Think global, act local is a big one for us in the sense of we don't want to limit ourselves to the potential of our local communities, like just awareness and our resources down here. We're fighting cancer. We're fighting something that impacts everybody all throughout the entire world. So from a learning perspective, it's events like yours, like the conference, like this podcast, like our peers in the industry, whether it's Pelotonia or PanMask, or many of the other people, the Fred Hutch Center that puts on the ride. How can we learn together to ultimately come back and produce events that work for our local communities, that benefit our local communities, and that give towns like this better access to the care that they need? Now, you touched upon the really important factor here. Yes, the affiliation with the Miami Dolphins, with Hard Rock Stadium, with the Miami Open, with the Formula One Miami Grand Prix, with the concerts that are taking place here. That is one thing that I'm very, very fortunate and privileged of. Our owner, Stephen Ross, and the vice chairman, Tom Garfinkel, they have a vision of the importance of what the DCC means, not just to the South Florida community, but all the properties that are here. So to answer your question, it is a very large ensemble of individuals that play different roles. We have Miami Dolphins players on the board. We have Miami Dolphins cheerleaders that might ride 100 miles. We have individuals that are treated at Sylvester for cancer, or even their family members. We have fans all throughout the world. We have fan bases in Germany, in England, and Mexico, and Brazil, and Spain, that all come and support the DCC. So rallying everyone together is absolutely critical. And we do it behind this mission or this message of one team, one fight. And when in doubt, we always bring it back to there. Are we doing the right things of bringing people together in alignment in the fight against cancer?
I love that. And I think that's, when you are developing the strategy, you say you've got all of these different people in the mix, right? You have to develop a lot of different playbooks, right? It's a lot of different personas in the mix in terms of what motivates them, what their needs are, what they're looking, why they're getting involved with this event in the first place. So how do you, identify those personas, And then once you have that sense of who they are, like how are you tailoring your work and your support to meet all of these different types of groups?
Yeah, this was, I think, in my learning. I've been here now 7 years. And if there's anything that I've never taken for granted and continuously remind myself is everyone faces their own fight, whether it's an individual, an organization, an aspiring coworker, or even a leader in the industry. Winning awards like being the number one fundraiser in the NFL, it's something that we can, is a notch on our belt, but at the end of the day, that's not the fulfillment that fuels us forward. When you see an organization that talks about the impact, that's something that makes people really see progress. And impact even comes in many different ways. So we like to enjoy this process. It's like a persona study of just really analyzing and understanding the needs and the wants of different audiences and the way that they take part. So when onboarding a staff member, for example, if we're going out into the community to try to solicit support, we benefit the University of Miami's Cancer Center. You don't want to lead with University of Miami if they went to FSU. But we support cancer research. If the organization has a team and one of their pillars is not cancer, you may not want to lead with cancer. You may want to lead with employee engagement. If the organization, if the individual grew up in Buffalo and he just so happens to like that other team that's up there, we may want to lead with cancer. If the individual actually has been impacted by cancer or is going through treatment, we want to be mindful of what their journey and their experience has been. And I can go on and on. If you don't want to talk to a cyclist about running a 5K and you don't want to talk to a 5K about riding 100 miles on a bike, it's very easy to lose an audience if you're not using the right communication method. If you haven't done your research, if you don't understand who they are, this takes a lot of effort and a lot of background knowledge. When you think about, we might be communicating to 100,000 people to then recruit 300 teams and organizations who then turn into, let's say, 7,000 participants who then solicit 40 to 50,000 donations. So I know I just threw a whole lot of numbers at you, but the goal being everyone's story and everyone's scenario is so different. And in the world of peer-to-peer fundraising, we say this often, people give to people. So at the end of the day, we are creating a platform that helps individuals run, walk, or ride for many different reasons. It goes back to they might be doing it for the university, their alma mater, for the cause, for cancer, for their friends or family, because they're riding 100 miles on the bike for the first time, because they're on a weight loss journey doing a 5K. At the end of the day, we know that many people choose to do it for different reasons. And if we can acknowledge and hear them and speak to them in a way that relates to them, then we've got a greater path to a healthy relationship.
I attended a conference recently where there was a speaker that was talking about how we can communicate and approach our participants and our fundraisers based not on their demographics, but on their values. And how do we really understand that? Now, he was taking an angle of how do we figure that out from an AI perspective, which is a lot harder, right? You can do some great AI work when it comes to demographics. It's a lot harder to do with values. But his whole concept was, you can have, two people from the same city that live on the same street who there was a time where people would have likened them to be similar just because they lived in the same zip code. And they would have marketed to them similarly. But that does not mean that those people have that they're anything alike. And so how do you understand what people's values are? The example he used, he literally said, anybody in the room, if you've got on a smartwatch, hold up your hand. And we all did. And he said, everybody's so different ages, different races, different genders. He said, but then you all have something in common. You're committed to, tracking your personal growth. So he was using that as an example of, on the surface, you all look very different, but you all value something similar. And that's kind of what I'm hearing as you're talking about these different personas and how you support them.
You hit on the head and you said one of my favorite words. It's not AI. Value. it's something that we preach here. Like at the end of the day, if you are somehow or other adding value to someone's life, you are building a relationship that is genuine, that is reciprocal. You remind me of a story that I always think about. There was an individual, I was I was the race director for the Sarasota Half Marathon. And there was an individual over there. She wrote me an email one time and she just said, I want to thank you. And I had a good understanding of who she was. We were friends on Facebook. And she was on a weight loss journey. And she had lost 180 pounds. And the Sarasota Half Marathon was her goal. And she finished the race. And I just remember reading this email and turning around and saying, in my eyes, you're like one of my heroes for what you've accomplished. And meanwhile, she's reaching out to me, thanking me, and I'm saying, all I do is put out cones and tell the police to, stop traffic and order a bunch of medals and water and Gatorade and stuff and give it to you. But yet you've committed to months and months and months of this. You've extended years upon your life. Like I said, I see her on Facebook, so I see the beauty of her transformation. And that's where I just turned around and thought, like, we have such potential of creating value for individuals that sometimes we take it for granted of how much energy and how much power we can reciprocate amongst one another, where she's turning around and thinking, I have to reach out to him to say thank you. It was the exact opposite. Like for her, and she knew that. I'll forever remember her as one of those individuals that I'm just like, this is why we do what we do. This is different. This is why we're mission driven. This is why we're cause driven. This is why we're servant driven. And that's just one of those examples of just that I always think about. We're adding value to people's lives, and we do try to think of relationships, whether it's with a corporation, whether it's with a sponsor, or any other. Like, we have to prioritize values over perks and benefits and chotskis and all that kind of stuff. This is our responsibility in this industry.
I agree. I had an old boss who used to say, our job is simply to be the conduits through which people get to support a cause that they love. We're here to create that opportunity and to help them give back or benefit on their weight loss journey or whatever it is. Like, we're creating these experiences for them. Like, they're not showing up for us.
100%. Like, we want to be their favorite day of the year. In allowing them the privilege of doing something so special that they can't do on a daily basis. Like, that's how we view our audience. And I think that's been really critical to our cause. Like, we have a team of 7 here that works under the nonprofit umbrella, and these are my favorite humans on the planet. I love my team. They're all wonderful people, and we excel with that common bond of just saying, like, look, we're in this for the good. We say this over and over and over again. When we're making tough decisions, rule number 1, are we prioritizing people? Are we prioritizing people? Are we putting people first? And we have to base our decisions off of that. And we have to make sure that is something that we're doing right. Yeah. It's not easy to do.
No. Well, it's not easy to do. And it's also not easy to teach people how to do. Javier, so you mentioned your team, and I'm sure, just like there's a lot of different personas in your participants, your staff are all kinds of different people with different learning styles and leadership styles. How do you, coach them and support them? How do you kind of adapt your leadership style to help all of them do exactly what we just said, become values-based and not just numbers-based or demographics-based? Like, how do you actually coach them on that?
That's a great question. I just feel
it just comes naturally. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's the opposite. I'm constantly questioning myself. I'm challenging these guiding principles. Like, we have to turn around and tell ourselves there's, are we growing stronger by working together? Like, in other words, are we just throwing stuff on the calendar because we were forced to, or because we had to? Like, I turn around and talk to the team about three basic guiding principles. One is if we're working together, we're doing things in alignment, and we're operating together, and it ultimately yields results that helps us grow together. Another one is our core is already in place. Like what we do, our mission, the fact that we not only do we fund cancer research, but we bring people together for connection purposes. So let's build on what we already do. Don't stray away from it. And those two areas of focus really help provide a lot of clarity for individuals. Nothing kills culture worse than uncertainty. So I challenge myself every single day, and don't get me wrong, I'm far from perfect on this. But I'm constantly self-reflecting and open to that. So are we building on what we already do? And that helps us not, one, create redundancies or just stay off a track. It just creates some of that clarity. And then lastly, we have this really important principle of just support those that need us most. So if that's the one that yields the result that ultimately brings that impact reward. The first one creates collaboration, grow stronger by working together. The second one, build on what we already do. That focuses on efficiency and staying on the right track without distractions. And then the third one, support those that need us most. That's the one that ultimately you see those results of impact that you say, this is worth it. This is value. This is true result. This is why I woke up at 3:00 in the morning. I unpacked that truck. I did all those things because of the impact, because of the people that need us most.
Yeah. And do you feel like that bleeds over when we think about your staff's motivations? We talked about how fundraisers have different reasons why they're choosing to be involved, and you kind of have to kind of draw out that motivation from them. It's not always obvious with staff, right? Like they're there for professional growth, they're there for a paycheck. How do you uncover what drives your staff?
That's funny. I feel like they show me. I think we made such an important emphasis on identifying people first, people for who they are. Just their personalities, their values based. Like they have great skills, but we didn't hire skills based. We hired values based. We talked a lot about soft skills. Where's their heart? Where's their passion? What are their hobbies? And believe it or not, those other areas came naturally. I really don't want to take any credit for their talent and their abilities, because I just think they inspire me as much as I inspire them. There's no question about that. And we don't have a one leader like mentality. That's not how we are. I want them to be strong and challenge me on anything and everything. I want them to correct me if I'm not prioritizing people. I want them to criticize me if I'm saying something that's not building upon what we already do. And I want to have that comfort in doing the same thing with them, but ultimately realizing that we build our relationships by having lunch together every day as in family style, but we also have that openness to where we can shoot down someone else's idea or quickly correct them or adjust them, because one is we all know who we are deep down inside. And I've worked at a lot of places for a lot of years. This isn't my first job, and I can say this may not be the case forever, but right now we and the building realizes that we have a very special team. I'm very fortunate with the group of 7 that we've got.
So Javier, if there are people listening and they're thinking, I like this approach, and I wish that my team was taking more of a values-based approach to how we get to know our fundraisers, what advice would you give them on where to start?
Yeah, start with your champions. So like while we were doing this podcast, I just got a text from one of my champions. When we started it, there was another champion that had written to me asking me to go out to lunch. First and foremost, you got to learn from your audience. Depending on the size of your event, like as I mentioned earlier, we have thousands of participants and tens of thousands of donors. Find out who's been around for a while and just befriend them, get to know them. And there's one important thing that I've learned is bring them together but don't present. But here's a catch. Don't present to them. Bring them together and then hear their connection. So what you're going to turn around and realize is there's an immense value, not just because at the end of the day, no one likes to listen to a teacher. Sorry, no offense to teachers, but people, especially when you're talking about professionals, like they want to turn around and find value in it for themselves. And there's no greater value than connecting with somebody that you see eye to eye to. Like when I met you, for example, the second I met you, it was like I loved speaking to this person and hearing everything that you've heard because you've been exposed to so much that's similar to what I do, but from the lens of so many others. So to me, that was a value of getting to know you. So I would prioritize those two elements. One is who has been a part of the culture of the community, who's a champion, and then what platforms or forums do you have for bringing them together throughout the year without asks? I don't need anything from you. I'm not asking you to download an app or create a Facebook fundraiser. I'm not even asking you for money. I just want to bring you together. And we try to avoid industry terms. We try to avoid, that's what we're thinking. We're thinking focus groups, but we don't necessarily call them that. We turn around and just say, let's go have fun. And when you see those individuals connect with each other, you're going to learn so much more. You're going to develop genuine relationships to where I always tell my team, try to be as strong with individuals to where you can be in their part of town, shoot them a text message, and just say, hey, where's the best burger in your area? And that they're comfortable enough to respond to you without dismay, surprise, or anything. Just say, yeah, I tried cheeseburger, baby, on the beach. If you're that comfortable with an individual, that means you've developed a genuine relationship. And if your relationship is that genuine, then you're ultimately going to find value in one another comfortably.
I love that. And, I've often said, focus more on friendship and less on stewardship. And I've had some people that kind of balk at that. And they're like, but it's not about you. It's about them having a relationship with the organization. And I'm like, yes, but that is a channel to the relationship with the organization. And if I've had friendships with donors and supporters where, you've seen people like celebrate birthdays together, celebrate, babies, people be invited to weddings through this relationship that they built through an event. And that is part of what keeps people coming back every year. And then I think your point about getting your supporters together, again, I heard a speaker one time talk about how do we get our donors to become friends? Because then that is one more link that they're going to have to our organization. They're going to love the mission. They're going to love the event. And now they're going to love the people. How do we prioritize that? And we bundle it up under this term community so often. And yes, that is what it is. But I think it's actually more than that. I think it's deeper than community. It's friendship with our supporters.
You said something that triggered a thought. You're so right. I was on a call with a partner. It really wasn't long ago. It might have just been a couple weeks. And she came out in the DCC for the first time. She lives in Dallas. She works with another foundation. And her and a team of 3 or 4 turned around and did the bike ride. And I'm going to make sure she listens to this so she can know I called her out. Her 2 friends, one of which was her boss, and then someone else in the corporate team, left her on the bike ride. They went on ahead. And she fell a little behind and she slowed down. Then all of a sudden, she shares this story, and she was doing the 39-mile bike ride. So it wasn't an easy walk in the park, She says, someone hopped in front of me and just said, grab my wheel. And so she rode behind her and she drafted. In cycling, when you draft behind somebody, it really makes it a lot easier, especially when it's windy, for 2 reasons. One is you're not hitting the wind, but 2, you've got someone there with you that you have this sort of obligation. And she sees in the back of her jersey, she has a photo of her daughter, and she doesn't get the person's name. She rides after she had been fallen off from her friends. She rides in the ride, and she gets to the last traffic light before the stadium. And the woman just turns around and she's looking at her like she's my angel. She just says, the finish line is just 1 or 2 more blocks in there. She goes, your team is waiting for you. And she just looks and she says, okay. Like she was super grateful. She goes, I'm going to go back to go get my family, but I just wanted to make sure you got here safe. So she calls her angel, and she goes, she didn't get a chance to get her name, but she did get a chance to say, I have to ask, who's that person on the back of your jersey? She's like, that's my daughter. She's a brain cancer survivor.
Oh, wow.
And she was treated at Sylvester, and there was this connection and this moment. And she told me this story, and I was really happy to hear it. Not just because of that power, that energy, but more so because I knew exactly who helped her. And I sent her the video of that story. And that was that moment where I just turned around and realized we're doing this right. We know who our people are. We know what their stories are. We know their whys. And I haven't made the connection between the two just yet. Like I haven't introduced Carrie to Elise, but or I should say Elise's mom. But it was one of those really powerful moments of just turning around and saying, like, this is how much pride we take in these roles. These aren't numbers. These aren't just a cyclist that's doing the 39. This is someone from X, I know exactly who this person is, and I know exactly who this person is. So much so that even information just like that could help us connect people. That's the power of what makes it so special. So I just want to echo your point there. It's hard, but it's our goal to know all 7,000 of our participants, what their stories are, and why they're doing it, because that matters to them. And the last thing you want to do is have someone open up to you, tell you a story, tell you their why, and you dismiss it. That's not why we do this.
Absolutely. Well, Javier, I love that story and all your great insights. So I imagine if there are people at home listening and thinking, where can I learn more about the great work at the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, or maybe I want to come out and ride in Miami, how can people get involved? Where can we send them?
Yeah, dolphinscancerchallenge.com is our official site. If you do go onto the Miami Dolphins site or the Miami Dolphins social pages, you'll see primarily football team stuff. So I recommend you go dolphinscancerchallenge.com. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then, of course, our website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Javier. I appreciate all your insights.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. And again, thank you and your team. This really means a lot, that you guys are giving us a platform to just turn around and say, look, everybody, you can work in the industry, you can participate, you can donate, but at the end of the day, people and organizations all over the world are thinking about you.
Love it. We will see everyone on the next episode.
The P2P Soap Box is produced in partnership with True Story FM, engineering by Pete Wright. Music this week is by Balloon Planet. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, we hope you'll consider doing just that for our show. But the best thing that you can do to support the P2P Soap Box is simply to share the show with a friend or colleague. Thank you for listening.